Hello, hi, and welcome to Soulful Restoration with me, Lyric the Curator. Thank you for pressing play and coming with me on the soulful journey of restoration. Today, I want to talk about a word that we are familiar with. Perhaps it could even be a concept if you give it a little bit more thought. I want to talk about proximity. Thought about all fancy titles, but it came down to the reality of what I want to talk about is proximity. So proximity is defined as nearness or closeness in space, time, or relationship. Closeness or nearness in space, time, or relationship. I also find it weird that they use this definition because space and time are technically the products of relationship. You need space and time, distance and time. The pull and pull of distance, space and time is relationship. I want to look at three parts, which actually consolidate into just two. I want to look at proximity to others, proximity to self, and proximity to destiny. Proximity to self and destiny work in the similar fashion, like the same rules apply to them. That's why I say technically just consolidates into two parts. So let's start with proximity to others. Proximity, closeness, nearness. We oftentimes mistake proximity in space to proximity in relationship. And they're really not the same thing. Like, it's how casually we use the term friend, for example. Like, everyone you meet is like your friend. You met for a whole 2 seconds. How are you friends? You know, do you understand the gravity of being friends? What that means, what friendship is? Being acquaintance is not a bad thing, for example, right? Work is actually where it gets tricky even because you share space with a person often every other day, like 4 days, 5 days a week, maybe, even more. All of a sudden that equates to friendship. But if you pay attention to it, you're just close in space, not in relationship. And the distinction is this: when you are in proximity in space, right, distance, you're close to the person, you're in their space, that might result to the flow of resources. Right? At work, you all work together. You get from point A to point B. You get things done. You get things moving. But relational proximity gives you access to a life. That comes with responsibility. So the pillars with relational proximity is responsibility and accountability, right? And these are like two sides of the same coin, if you ask me, because responsibility is defined as a state of fact or having a duty to deal with something or having control over someone. Accountability is defined as acceptance of responsibility towards a party. It's kind of like the same thing. And most of the time is that we want to be close, or at least we want the notion of closeness, but we are not even remotely ready for the responsibility it comes with. And social media has a lot to do with it, right? The overexposure culture we live in has a lot to do with it because it gives the illusion of proximity. You see people posting, you read their captions every day. You know if they're having a latte in the morning because you saw their picture. You know which restaurant they like because it's always there. It's readily available. But just because you know that doesn't actually mean you have access to their lives. And what I'm getting at is proximity comes with a price. And the price to pay is responsibility and accountability. And if you are in relational proximity to another person, with another person, in any shape, size, or form, what that says is you have a certain responsibility towards that person, as they to you. Proximity, guys. Okay, let me just pause back and rewind. As I said, relational proximity gives you an access to a life. And what that does is there are parts, phases, stages of your life that require assistance, that require a helping hand, that require advice, counsel, and sometimes just presence, right? Companionship. And if everybody that you happen to be close to in space, in your mind translates as closeness in relationship, you will expect things, right? You will expect people to show up, and yet they don't hold that level of responsibility because to you, they're just close in space. You just happen to be in the same space. You're not close enough to have access to them. Take the story of Jesus when he goes up to Mount Gethsemane. Was it? And he takes the inner circle, Peter, James, and John. That's the inner circle, right? 12 disciples, but these three are the inner circle. And I call them the inner circle because of the proximity of the relationship, the nature of that relationship. So when Jesus is going through the absolute most, Jesus is going through the absolute most, okay, Mgo is going, okay. He takes these three up. He has a certain expectation of them. Right? He says, y'all sit here, y'all pray while I go in. He has an expectation because of the relation of proximity they have. At that moment, they ought to just help the guy out, right? They should be praying there. They should be holding space for him when he can't. But the homies fall asleep. That's besides the point. What I'm saying is, in those moments in your life where you need a helping hand, you need someone to stand in the gap for you, you need someone to do the things you can't do for yourself in that moment, you need to be able to rely on your inner circle. So take stock of your inner circle. All right. Differentiate between people who are just around and people who are invested. Like people that are hanging around behave a lot differently to people who have skin in the game. In business, they talk about having skin in the game when they're going to invest in a new project or whatever, and they ask, how much have you as the person asking for funding put into this project? And they ask that because they know that if you have invested, you will treat that project a lot differently to when it's just an idea and using somebody else's resources. That's relational proximity. That's what it does, right? You have responsibility towards the other as they to you. And if it happens that you come to a pivotal moment in your life, you come to crossroads, you come to the winter of your life, and your inner circle fails to show up for you, all that does is the person has to work twice as hard to get out of a season or get out of a situation because the people who were already around and designated the responsibility to show up and assist did not. And there's not going to be like some 911 that you call and they just fly in. You just have to crawl and do it yourself harder. And it makes the process harder and longer. So if you are in an inner circle, understand your responsibility towards the other person, right? Just understand the dynamics of your relationship. Like if we had met for like 2 seconds and you're probably not going to tell me your life story. Even if you do, the chances of me helping you are like minimal, right? But if we're doing life together, then I have access to you and I have a responsibility towards you. And people are afraid of responsibility, but that's a chat for another day. All I'm trying to do is say, take stock of your inner circle. And just generally, like, don't confuse proximity in space to relational proximity. They're not the same thing. Not everybody that's hanging out with you is someone that will die for you. That's the fact. Think about Job when he was going through the absolute most, and his 3 friends came to his side. They didn't know what to do. They just came. Responsibility towards the other. Relational proximity. They came. How many people in your life that you thought would come to your side when you needed them did not? Okay? That's not on you. It happens. But the ideal when you're the one that's the inner circle, you should show up. And I hope that the people that you think are in your inner circle show up when you need them most, because it makes life very hard when the people that you trusted to show up don't. And the truth is, the only people who can hurt you and harm you at the deepest level are the people that you have relational proximity to, the people that have access to your life. They are the ones that can hurt you the most. But it's a risk we take every day, because that's what living is. Without it, I don't know, it will be very bland. And then we think about bad company corrupts good character. Bad company corrupts good character. We think we're not, what's the word, like waterproof or whatever, all right? If you keep certain company, if you're in the midst of certain things, they will sift into your bloodstream. It's like applying lotion. It's going to happen. And you're not immune to it. Think about if you are in a close proximity, which is redundant, close proximity to a complainer. Before you know it, you find yourself complaining a lot more than you usually do. And you're just like, because habits rub off. Like we literally rub off on one another. That's why scripture says, do not be misled. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good character. Doesn't matter how good you want to be or how good you are today. Who you have and what you have around you will sip into your bloodstream and contaminate you. That's a fact. So be careful of who's around you. Just because they don't have relational proximity doesn't mean they don't have any influence at all. Even if it's on social media or whatever you're watching online, those things, bring them close enough, watch how they change you. The reverse is also true, right? If you have good things, good company, good company sharpens good character in any shape, size, or form. And company is not limited to human beings. I mean, it's the company we think of, but it is media, right? Music, film. Also, if your character, like your personality type, if you're a person that's easily influenced, you need to be a lot more careful about the things you have in your proximity than someone who's just like aloof. Get what I mean? Don't be misled. Don't be deceived. Bad company corrupts good character. Then we get to the second part, proximity to self and destiny. It links with the previous one. I mean, it really, really does. But proximity to self and destiny is pretty much one and the same, because to get to the end of your existence being fulfilled, right? To get to the end of your life assignment is to get to the highest part of yourself. So they're kind of interlinked. They're kind of like the same thing. And as you vibrate, they talk about lower vibration, higher vibration, and all of those. And the funny thing about life is you can take one step forward and then like 10 steps back and maybe 2 forward again and then stop and be stationary. Like there's no fixed position. It's kind of like golf. You just go back and forth, But the best way I can describe proximity or the best analogy I can think of when I think about destiny and self. So when I talk about self or destiny, you can replace, right? I'm using them interchangeably. Is a geographical term, right? And I think this is the best way for me to describe it. So if you're into geography or at least camping, or you remember anything you were taught in geography class for like grade 7 or whatever, there is a term that is used to describe this imaginary line, right, above sea level. In a mountainous area usually is the best place where you'd find this imaginary line. And this line at a certain altitude is called the snake line, right? The geographical term and all it describes is that beyond that line in a mountain, snakes do not live. So they'll go up, and when people camp and stuff, they tend to ask, they look up where the snake line on that mountain or that field is, and they will have their camp above that line because they know they're safe, right? No snakes will come above that certain altitude. Snakes can't live above that altitude, but humans can. The snake line. If you take it figuratively, right, like you look at spiritual analogy perhaps, a snake represents all the things that seek to destroy you, right? The bad habits, the bad company, the weapons that are formed against you that do not prosper. Hopefully, they will not prosper. That's what the snake line is. And the top of the mountain, so beyond the snake line, that is your ultimate self. Right? That's your highest self. That is your destiny. That is you living in the fullness of your calling in life. And it's a mountain, so you have to climb, right? There's effort that is exerted. You have to climb. And every day when you live and you make decisions towards being a better person, you climb up the mountain. Every day you don't make such great decisions. You sort of like take a few steps down. And that's how it works. Like you're just constantly striving to get beyond the snake line. Because beyond the snake line, no more snakes. Like it's that simple. And when you are on the other side, so on the mountaintop, it's not to say snakes will not try their luck on you. Like it's not like they're not gonna come up. They will. They just won't come beyond that point. The only way for them to strike is for you to come down. You get that analogy? And what we often do is, once we get beyond the snake line in our lives, we still have view of the snakes coming towards us. And we get all worked up by them coming close to us. Yet they will not touch us because we are above the snake line. So we come down to try and attack them in their playing field. What's the point? Why would you do that? Why would you regress? But we do it, right? People talk about you, instead of keeping it moving, you turn around and you address them. Give them a piece of your mind. Someone triggers you, instead of letting it go, you go back full force, you're in it, right? And what you need to remember is they will try. Guaranteed. Life will try its luck on you. People will try their luck on you. The snakes will keep coming, but you cannot throw out your toys because they come close. They will come close, but they will not touch you. That's what you need to understand. For as long as you remain above the snake line, for as long as you remain in the fullness of who you are, for as long as you remain in the presence of God, for as long as you remain on the path to fulfill your life purpose, they will come close, but they'll never touch. So don't come down, don't regress and come play in the snake field. Continue to elevate. Walk past them. That's okay. You should set up camp at the top of the mountain, on the peak, and then watch them from, that nice view, from your Table Mountain view. Watch them at the bottom. So that is what I wanted to talk about proximity. Proximity has a price. It's responsibility. It's accountability. As you progress in life, there will be snakes that will be trying to bite you. Don't stop climbing. Do not stop climbing. Because once you reach beyond the snake line, they will come close. Oh, the snakes will come close, honey. The snakes will come close, but they'll never touch you. Till next time, take care of yourself. Take care of those around you and that which surrounds you. Bye for now. Cut. We're done.